Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of The Groundwork. Today's special guest is 13-time National Emmy Award winner Jeremy Levin. He is the showrunner for Inside the NBA at TNT, and he is also the producer for the March Madness Studio and Final Four shows, as well as NBA on TNT and so much more. His outstanding production skills have led him to have key roles in Turner's coverage of NBA playoffs and the NBA All-Star Weekend. Thank you for joining us, Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ashley.
So obviously now you're a successful producer, but take me back to when you found out this is what you wanted to do. Like, when did you know that production was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I guess it kind of goes back towards high school or college. I've always been into sports. And at some point I realized I was not athletically gifted enough to continue to participate. Probably like when I didn't make the varsity team in basketball or something like that, I was like, all right, yeah, well, clearly this is not going to be my career path. And that light kind of went off. But I also had an affinity to watching Sports Center and kind of just like wanted to watch the highlights and see what they're doing. But that was kind of back when Keith Olbermann and Dan Patrick were doing it, and they were just super creative in their process and how they put that show together. And I just kind of took a liking to watching that and like kind of wondering what went on to make that happen. And so in high school, I wrote for my school paper, and I kind of started hanging around like the public television station because that's all we really had. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, so a smaller town kind of outside of Denver. So that's all they had in Boulder. And then like I kind of just started reaching out to people like in Denver at the local stations there. I was like, hey, can I come see what you do, how you put this together? And they were gracious enough to let me like come hang out in their newsroom for a day. And, that was kind of the spark like that I realized like, well, it's not just the two people on TV that make this happen, right? The two anchors you see, there's a bunch of other people that work to put this in place. And so at that point, like I was like, oh yeah, you could be on air. You get there's all these other jobs. I was like, that's kind of cool. And so then I went to school at University of Arizona, and there they had a degree in media arts, and that was basically like a lot of film. There were a lot of kids from Southern California that wanted to come be movie makers, and so it was a lot of film study, and there was some radio and a little bit of TV. And so I got some experience there. But what really kind of kickstarted me was, and my timeline's a little gray here, but it was either my sophomore or junior year, I got an internship at the local NBC station in Tucson in their sports department. And there were only like 3 full-time employees in their sports department. There was the weekday anchor, the main guy you always see, the weekend anchor that was also a reporter during the week. And then they had like one producer guy that kind of helped out. So needless to say, they needed a lot of help from the interns, which is great for a guy like me coming in and learning. Like they just basically say, hey, go shoot all these high school football games on Friday with a shooter, bring the video back. I'd have to edit it. I'd put it all together. They'd be like, you produce that segment essentially. So like I was like the high school football producer. I'd go out, try to get to as many games as I could in a 3-hour window, get it back and try to make it for the whatever it was 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock news back then. And like things like that, they'd send me to University of Arizona basketball games to interview the players. And so it was just great experience. And it was so great. And I was having so much fun with it that even though my internship ended after, I maxed my credits out after whatever that was, 1 semester, 1 year, I was like, can I just keep doing this? Like basically, so they didn't pay me and I just kept going and doing it for free because I liked it so much. And I found I was passionate about that. Like, look, I took a lot of other classes in school, and that was one of the great things about going to college was like, hey, I took a class in forestry management, right? I took something in like geology. Like I just took all these other classes, and like nothing marketing, like nothing like hit me as much as being in that newsroom, chasing those stories, putting those shows together. And so I realized like, this is what I want to try to pursue. This is what I'm most excited about. And then back then it was just kind of the start of email. I graduated in the summer of 1995. So email is weird to think like, but there was limited email. So I'd actually like send physical letters to like everybody I was interested in getting a job with. So I sent letters to ESPN, CNN, every professional baseball team, basketball team, NFL team. I was like, look, I'm passionate about sports. I'm passionate about media. I want to work in your media relations department. I want to work, at ESPN. And like the one, like, so that was like 100 letters or whatever it was. And like the one positive thing I got back was a letter from CNN. And they were like, we don't have any jobs. We have these internships. If you're interested, you can apply. And so I applied. I interviewed on the phone. They called me back. They're like, hey, we have an internship for you. but we're not paying you. And again, like now kind of like being through this, like I was fortunate that my parents supported me, and like they're like, yeah, hey, it's they thought I was crazy, but they still supported me, like especially financially, to like pack my stuff up from Arizona, move across the country to Atlanta. I've never been there before. And so I'm in a very fortunate position that like I could do that, right? There's a lot of people like graduate and like I have to get paid immediately. And I just took this huge risk, and my parents supported it. And I got out here. And so I started interning for free again there at CNN. It was great. And you're in this, like back then, CNN Sports almost rivaled what ESPN was doing, that a nightly sports show. And so you're kind of in the mix with all these people, and it was great. And then I was like, well, I got to get a job because I do have to, make some money here. So I got a job as a caddy at East Lake Golf Course. So during the day, I'd caddy and make, like, coming out of college, I was like, this is great money. It was like $300 a day or whatever, because they give you like $150 per bag they carried. So I was like, oh, this is great. So I did that. And then at night, I'd go intern for free. And then at that point, someone's like, hey, so an intern there, you'd log every play of every game. So it was baseball season, basketball season, you're just writing every play that happens down so they could cut the highlights off that. And someone was like, hey, they pay you $100 a night to do that over at TNT. And back then TNT had the NBA on 3 nights a week. So I was like, yeah, where do I sign up for that? And they're like, hey, go interview with this guy. And again, like you kind of like, I look back at all these moments, and I interviewed with the guy, and like, we kind of hit it off, and it was good, and he hired me. But like, I'm sure there were a bunch of other people that he interviewed and he didn't hire. Right. So like, just fortunate to be in the right position, the right time, make a connection with these people. So he hired me to work 3 nights a week. So now I'm caddying and I'm working at night now, getting paid $300 a week, $100 a night to do that. I'm like, oh, I'm rolling in the money all of a sudden. Coming out of college, it's like, you didn't need much. And so that kind of kickstarted my career. And I knew I was in it when I got out here and kind of started rolling with all these people and meeting the people once I was in the door. And, one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. And here I am, over 20 years later, doing what I do.
That's great. And that's such a great story, a great experience. Like you said, it's hard to just be like, yeah, I'm just going to intern after college for no money. But the experience is something that you can't quantify, like that kind of experience with a company like that. It's just something that you, again, can't quantify. So that's really great that you got to have that experience. It's really great, the whole story. And so you're working at, working for the NBA on TNT in 1995, but you were also working for Fox at the same time, correct?
Yeah. So you're right. So basically, I was logging games for the NBA on TNT. And then back then, Fox Sports was a part of, which is now Bally Sports, but it was a part of Turner. So Turner owned the regional sports network back then. So again, you talk about like, it's just getting your foot in the door and meeting all these people, right? So like, I encourage everyone I talk to now, like, just find whatever job you can get to get in the door, right? So like an intern, or be a administrative assistant, or be a janitor, like whatever you got to do to get in the building, because then you're going to meet the people and the influencers that can help you longer in your career. So I was like, I'm just going to take everything I can do. So at night, day I'm caddying, night I'm working 3 nights a week over here. Back then, the regional sports network, again, was owned by Turner. So I was like, hey, is there stuff over there that I can do? And it turned out they were starting this SEC magazine show, and they needed help with a production assistant, kind of, building the show out. And so I did that. And I did that for like a season of SEC season, like basically a school year. And then it was just a freelance position. And then that summer came, and they're like, hey, we don't need your help for 3 months. I was like, okay, this kind of, now you're like, all right, what am I going to do? And NBA season is happening. So I kind of like had this summer off. But the good thing was the Olympics were coming. So I got a job with the Olympics that summer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So I covered baseball for the Olympics in the venue. So there were like triple headers of baseball, which was insane. Like, one baseball game's long enough, and you did 3 games back to back to back. It was just long days, but like being a part of the Olympics and the fun and festivities that were all associated with that was great. We do 3 games a night. We'd go out after the 3rd game, and we're downtown, and we're just hanging out with all these international people and celebrating and, enjoying the night. And then you wake up at like 7 a.m. to start the game at 8 or 9 the next day, whatever it was. A couple nights we just got so late, we slept in the clubhouse at the stadium. Like we didn't know what we were doing back then. So I did that. And then the fall season came back around. for this SEC show, and they're like, yeah, hey, we want you to do it again. Can we basically hire you full time? And I was like, yeah, it'd be great. So I kind of became my full time job. And then like it was either that year, the next year that Turner sold that to Fox. Fox kind of launched their regional network, so it became Fox. So I was working full time at that point at Fox on the SEC show, which eventually led to working on Braves and Hawks games as well, because they covered those on the regional package as well. So I started doing those, which was kind of like the next step in my career. But the whole time I was doing that, I was still working those 3 nights a week or 2 nights a week, whatever I could get in with the people at Turner to keep those connections up. Because again, this business is all about connections and personal relationships and the people, so I didn't want to let those go. And I knew I liked working at Turner a lot. So I kept doing that a couple nights a week as well. And then that led me. So I'm doing the stuff on Braves, Hawks. I'm working here at night. I interviewed for a couple full-time jobs at Turner. I didn't get them. I got turned down. Other people beat me out for them, which is always disappointing. But then there came this point after I've been working at Fox for probably 4, 5, 6 years, I'm guessing, where they're like, hey, we need an associate director at Turner they also had they split the regional package for the Hawks and Braves games among Fox and Turner. So the Turner was like, hey, we need this person. Are you interested? I'm like, yeah, I'm taking it. I'm doing it. Because I knew I wanted to get back into Turner at that point. I kind of run my course at Fox. I was like, I'm doing it. So they hired me to do Braves and Hawks at Turner. I did that for 2 years. In between that, they had this Goodwill games, which I got a chance to go to Australia, which is, again, a once in a lifetime opportunity. Someone paying you to go to Australia to work. And so covered that, which is kind of an Olympic feel again, just working on events in Australia, which was great. And then spent 2 more weeks just traveling around Australia after that ended, which was amazing. My wife came down, met me. My brother came down and met me. It was just a really cool experience, going to the Great Barrier Reef and all those things that, you think Australia is. It was amazing. So again, kind of just right place, right time, and was able to experience that. Came back from that, and they had me start working on the national games on NBA, on TNT. And at that point, I was on the road a bunch as an associate director. So we'd travel to wherever the games were. And back then we did a lot of West Coast games. My crew did a lot of West Coast games. So we'd be out in Phoenix, LA, Lakers, Clippers, Suns. Those were the great teams, Portland. So we're traveling to the West Coast every week, which again, as I was younger, it was great. And I loved being on the road all the time. As I got older, I got married. I was like, oh, this is fun. Then we had kids. And I was like, I really don't want to be away from home as much. And but I did that for 7 years basically. And by the end, I was like, all right, what's next? I got to find something else. And again, just right time, right place. At that time, Turner took over the operations of NBA TV, which used to be run strictly by the NBA, but they came to an agreement with Turner for us to do all their productions. So they moved all the productions down to Atlanta, and they had to hire this whole staff. And that's when I got my first full-time producing job, when they had to hire all these people to run NBA TV. So I was a producer for NBA TV. And not that I was not producing stuff before then, because again, like one of the big things I emphasize with everybody is like, you got to push and you got to ask for these opportunities. So even as associate director, I knew I wanted to be a producer, which again, it was a little weird in my head, because associate director, I feel like, oh, I need to be an associate producer. What I realized is it doesn't really matter what the title is. You just need to take the next step in your career and advance it. So associate director, even though I know I want to be a producer, I took this job as an associate director, did the director responsibilities, but also kind of tried to branch out with producer stuff. So I'd asked to produce Braves studio cut-ins, like we did updates in the Braves studio. And so I was like, hey, can I produce those? Or we had a college football studio. I was like, hey, on the weekends, can I come in and produce those things? So, I observed a guy for a while, then I'd go in and they were gracious enough to let me start producing these things before I got my full-time producing gig at NBA TV. And then from there, I did that for about 6, 7 years, and the same thing, found myself kind of in this like, all right, I've done this. What's next? Inside the NBA is there. It's been run by this guy, Tim Kiley, who's been around for years and years. And he's kind of like the guy that invented what you see with NBA, with NBA on TNT and inside the NBA. And this is free flowing conversation. He came from ESPN, where it was always like, hey, we're just going to talk to the camera. I'll talk for 30 seconds. You talk for 30 seconds. He's like, dude, that's not how people talk, man. Like, people just have conversations. They interrupt each other. They look people in the face. You have a conversation like this, face to face, not like staring off at a camera. That'd be weird to talk to you, and I'm talking over this other camera. So he kind of tried to break all these conventions. He brought me under his wing, kind of taught me the ropes about producing. And then, they're like, what do you want to do? Like, well, I went out, interviewed for other jobs as a producer, came back, I got a couple of offers. I was like, look, I want to stay here. And they're like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I really want to produce inside. This guy, Tim, was great. He let me, start getting reps, producing inside, and then kind of handed the reins over to me full time 6-7 years ago and been doing it ever since. So that's kind of my career path in a nutshell.
That's such an amazing story. You got to do so many cool things along the way. Like you mentioned, the Olympics, the Goodwill Games. Was there anybody you met at the Olympics where you were a little bit starstruck? Because I can imagine a global event, everybody had to be there, or a lot of people had to be there.
Yeah, it's weird. Again, you go back to like 1996. Again, like there's no social media, so there's no,
Right.
no email really, not everyone's carrying a device around. It's just like, back then it was like, hey, meet me at Centennial Olympic Park at midnight and we'll see what happens. And then you just like hope you meet people there. And yeah, so it was a great experience. I'm sure I ran across like some famous people or like Olympians, and like part of my job was getting all the athletes from that was the old Atlanta Fulton County baseball stadium, and then they built the new stadium right across the street, so we had to funnel all the athletes over. And I remember the dream team was like, I helped the dream team get out of the stadium. And I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome to see all those guys or whatever. But again, like I probably had like an old disposable camera that like was film and like old pictures. It's not like I could just snap it, upload it to Instagram, and be like, man, look, I saw the dream team today. So it's just weird like how things change. Now, like I'm sure if you go, like, when Japan's different this summer anyway, but if you go to the Olympics, it's probably a totally different experience than I had. But again, like just all these things I've got to do because of my job and travel. I've been to Europe multiple times, Australia, the Olympics, all these things are just, it's so crazy to think about what this job has kind of afforded me to do in my life and my career.
That's amazing. And also you just talked about disposable camera. So how did the technology and what went into making a show and producing back then in the 90s as it is now? Because I think people forget, like you said, email wasn't really a thing. I looked it up before our interview that technically the birth of the internet was January 1st, 1983. So it was still in its infancy. So what was production, all this kind of stuff like back then compared to what it is now?
Yeah. I mean, it's changed a lot. And like in terms of technology, it's changed dramatically. I would say in terms of philosophy and how we try to execute the show and kind of that vision that I was talking about, Tim Kiley, like those things we try to remain core principles. So, having super conversational shows and letting people speak their authentic truths, those things we try to not mess with and try to keep pure. I'd say how we do that has changed, a ton from when I first started. Back when I first started, we worked with like videotape, and you actually physically had to edit it and, work on edit machines. Now it's all digital files, just like, again, like we had an old roll of film that we took pictures with. Now it's all digital on my phone. The fact that we can just even capture content on our phone these days, like we used to carry big cameras around and have to set things up. And now it's like, it's all just, I can capture an interview right here. We can do Zoom interviews. Like, before we'd have to travel a whole crew to LA to interview LeBron James. And now, we can have on the show using Zoom or whatever the technology is to have a video conference. And it's a lot easier on everybody. But we found, especially during this pandemic, like, hey, that's okay to have a conversation like this, especially now that everybody's used to doing this. Like, this is pretty good quality. It's pretty good audio. It's pretty good video. Like, people are used to it. They do it every day in their own lives now. So it makes it a lot easier to get interviews with star athletes when you can do it this way, rather than having to, hey, we need you for an hour to sit down, take it out of your day. We're going to have a whole crew come in your house and set up lights and all this stuff, which we still try to do from time to time for sure. But it just makes things a lot easier to be able to do conversations over the internet for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely more convenient for a lot of people because it's not even just about the interview being an hour. But it's like you have to set up, you have to, go to that location. Maybe you have to fly somewhere. So it definitely is more convenient. What would you say besides the internet? Because I think that's like an obvious answer. How do I say it? It's like technological advancement that most changed how you do production besides the internet.
Yeah. I mean, I think just like all the digital editing and logging and capturing of footage, all of that's just done digitally. Again, before we'd have to have like cases and cases of videotape, and I'm trying to see if I have any around my, like, if I have some old ones. Like, I mean, like, there's these like big cassettes, like they were bigger than VHS, and people remember what VHS tapes are, and that you put in your VCR. But like,
I still have one.
Yeah, good. All right, good. So these were even bigger than that. And like, so to travel to a game, like I would literally take this like tub that was like like basically like a workman's tub. Like it was a huge tub. I had to travel with it because I have all these videos of like all these historical clips. Like if we're going to do the Lakers, hey, I need all these clips of Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and I'd take all this stuff, and even the current Shaq and Kobe, like we'd transport all that, and like now it's like you can take it all again on like this could have all the footage I need, transfer it there. We don't even need to take the stuff with us because we can digitally like transfer it from my laptop in Atlanta to LA. And so just like, to me, that's the amazing thing. We used to have a huge library that was staffed with lots of people to help us find all this footage. And now it's all just, it's all searchable, just like Google. Like I just search for, Kobe or Shaq, and it gets populated. Here's all the clips. I can watch them on my laptop. Like it's just all so much easier and quicker and transferable. So I'd say that's the biggest thing I've seen change over, the 20 years.
Right. So now you're the showrunner for Inside the NBA on TNT. So I'm sure, we all see the show and what happens, and it's one of my favorite shows. It's a great show to watch. But take me through what it takes to, produce the show and what it takes leading up to, Thursday night, because I don't think people realize it's not just you walk in Thursday and it's all ready. You have to probably do a week's worth, 2 weeks worth, of like planning.
Yeah, for sure. You're exactly right. I mean, there's a lot of planning and there's a lot of collaboration. One of the other big, things we pride ourselves on is the collaboration of our entire staff to build the show. So it's not just on me. My job is to help lead this team. And, like I definitely like to contribute ideas, but if it was on me to, come up with all the ideas for every show of every segment, it would be the worst show ever. So we like that we have this big collaborative environment where ideas can come from anywhere. Again, it's not just me. It's not just the director of the show, Steve Fiorello, our production managers, our PAs, someone that works in the cafeteria could come by and be like, hey, Jeremy, I got this idea for the show. Great. Like we'll take them all, and the best ideas win and the best ideas surface to the top. And that's what makes it happen. But basically, I'll just take you through a normal week. Again, when we're in the office, it sounds like we're going to start going back in the office in a month or so. This whole year, this 18 months has been kind of a weird aberration of how we produce the show and put it together. But in a typical environment, on Monday, we'll go in the office and have a meeting that kind of sets up the week ahead. So, hey, show's on Thursday. These are the games we have. These are the announcers we're working with. Here's some moments. Here's some things we talked about the previous week. Are we still on board to do this? Hey, there's some sales elements involved. And again, then people pitch ideas about things that, hey, this could be good this date, or this could work this day, or hey, 2 weeks from now, is the start of all-star voting. Let's put that on our calendar. So Monday is kind of this big meeting with everybody, super collaborative, sharing ideas, and Ernie's on that call. And so he'll have ideas. And so again, just everyone kind of getting the ideas flowing about what we want to do on Thursday. So that's Monday. Then Tuesday is kind of Tuesday and Wednesday are prep days for Thursday in terms of, like people divvying out assignments. I'll work on creating a show rundown, which again, we use electronic way to create a rundown or format, which kind of just how we're going to execute the show. We're going to open up with scenics of Los Angeles, and then we're going to come into the studio. These guys are going to talk. We need B-roll of, whatever, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. So we need video of that. So I kind of create that rundown on Tuesday, send it out to everybody. So the graphics people know what graphics that we need to be built. The associate producer knows the video that we need to build. And all that. So that kind of happens on Tuesday into Wednesday. And then Thursday, I typically get in around lunchtime. I'll meet with Ernie again. Ernie always gets there super early. Like he's like the star athlete. He's the first guy in the building, last guy out of there. I try to beat him a lot of times and you can't. So it's ridiculous. He's always there. I think he might live there. But so I'll meet with him early, like around lunchtime, just, hey, everything's still good for Monday. Anything else hit your radar? Anything hit my radar? Again, things change over the course of 2 or 3 days. Someone could have sprained an ankle. There could have been a big, news story. Again, like one of the things that I love about our show is that we don't stick to sports. So there could be something else that has happened. And a lot of that's happened over the past 18 months. So we've had a lot of these conversations about how do we want to try to address this in the proper way? And what's the, do we need to kind of get a special guest in, or, what's the right way to do it? So if we need to pivot around lunchtime on Thursday, we do that. We talk about those things. then around 2 or 3, the rest of the staff starts getting in. So go check in with them individually. Hey, do you have everything you need? Everything makes sense. Everything we've talked about. That happens. And then around 5 o'clock, we'll have a big production meeting again where that like everybody that's involved. So our technical staff will be a part of that, our camera people, our stage manager, our TD, everybody will kind of come in this room. Or again, it used to be in a room, now it's virtual, but hopefully we'll meet back in a room again soon. And we just kind of go through the flow of the night and what we're expecting, and everybody's on board. And hey, do we have all the right elements? Again, do you have, as a technical director, have the right sales elements to execute the sales things we have to do that day? So we do that. Everyone breaks for dinner. We come back. We don't rehearse a lot. Like, we pride ourselves on not doing a lot of rehearsal. Just we have this natural, free-flowing conversation. So Ernie will typically go out a little bit early. I'll just show him, hey, this is the graphic. This is what it looks like. This is what we built. These are a couple things. Maybe here's a sound bite that we wanted to talk about. So we'll just review those so we know what's up. Shaq, Kenny, and Charles will roll out about 5-10 minutes before we're on the air, get wired up, put their, microphones on, their in-ear things in. And then like they really have no clue what's coming, which is again some of the beauty of the show. So we'll launch into the show, and usually to go as scripted and things we talked about, but some of the best shows are when it doesn't go as scripted and we veer hard right, or Charles says, hey, I want to talk about something else. Okay, Charles, go ahead and talk about it. Again, this is a free-flowing conversation. And the great thing about our crew and our staff is we're able to pivot and not work just strictly off that rundown. We're ready to go and do something else. And, if that's what the moment calls for. So that's at 8 o'clock. We go on the air with a pregame show. It depends how long. Sometimes they're 15 minutes, sometimes they're 30, sometimes they're an hour. We do a double header. At halftime, we'll be back on. Sometimes between games we're on. And then at the end of the night, we do Inside the NBA, which again is kind of just a compilation of highlights. And we try to make it a little more entertaining. And, we lean to the entertainment side a little more than just a strictly sports show. So that's kind of the week. And then Friday, you take a breath, and then I start stressing about Friday after lunch about how we're going to attack it the next week.
Well, you guys have been doing a great job because you keep winning awards. It's just a great show. What's it like working with, Shaq, Kenny, Charles, Ernie? Like, they're so much fun to watch on TV, and I'm always laughing, and I know everybody else is. So they must be so much fun to work with just, in the studio as well.
Yeah, for sure. They're all great guys. I mean, like, that's the best thing about it. Their nature, how they are on air, is pretty much how you see them on TV and behind the scenes. They're all great people. They all there's nothing really fake about them. Of course you see with Charles is always going to speak his mind no matter what, if it's on air. Just sitting back in the green room with me or anybody else, he'll tell you how he feels about it. And it's one of the great things about him. But, it's truly a family atmosphere. Everyone's got each other's backs. There's no, no infighting, or, everyone has disagreements, but again, like a family, like it's just, it's all there, and everyone's got it. At the end of the day, everyone's supporting each other. Shaq's like a huge kid. He, he's got a million things going on in his life, and he circles around our orbit, comes in and does his thing, and then he's off to his next 10 other things. Kenny's great. And, I can't say enough about Ernie Johnson. Ernie's, one of the best, if not the best guy out there. That I'm so fortunate to be able to work with him over my career. Not just what he brings to the show, but what he brings to life and how he treats people, and how he treats his family. He's an amazing human being, and to get a chance to interact with a guy like that, and have a little bit of that in your life, you're super fortunate. So I'm just thankful every day that I get to work with an anchor like that, and a guy that, puts in the work, in front of the camera, behind the camera, off screen, sports, non-sports, he does it all. And he's such a great role model.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of that in the documentary, with Ernie, all of them. And we just see a little bit into their lives, a little bit about their background. And you could tell Ernie is like such a nice person. Like, all of them are, obviously, but we're talking specifically about Ernie. Such a nice person. He just seems like so caring. He's willing to help others. He just looks like so nice. Like, I just want to be his friend.
he is a great human being. It's amazing. He treats everybody with kindness, and he leads with kindness. Where I'm like, because sometimes we go out on the road and it's just like overwhelming, all the people, and they all want to get pictures with all of them, and Ernie included. And he'll be out there, and I'm like, man, to have this patience and to do this, and he's just such a caring, giving person that He doesn't think twice about it.
Right. So I gotta know, Who invented Charles Guarantee button? Because I remember it was him with like, the picture of his face with the dollar sign.
Mhm.
And then I can't remember exactly when it transitioned to a button, but it did. And I'm just wondering, how did that come up? Like, who came up with that? And like, how do you guys keep bringing, the circus, all this to the
Yeah.
show? It's just great.
I'm glad you brought it up because it's a great story, how the guarantee button came to be, and it speaks to a lot about what our show is about. So there's a guy that works in our marketing department. His name was Oscar Pope, and Oscar's he's a really quiet guy, super humble, but he always had great ideas. And so he'd come to the meetings sometimes and be like, "Hey, Jeremy, how about this?" Or how about, again, he's just pitching ideas all the time, which is great. And so in the marketing department, they were trying to come up with a way to kind of build some anticipation about the playoffs. And so he's like, "Hey, Jeremy, I created these guarantee buttons that I'm going to mail out to like kind of influencers and people that are fans of the show to kind of get them excited and have them post, hey, look at the guarantee button I got. Would you guys be interested in one?" And yeah, again, like I was like, yeah, sure, let's try it and see what happens. See if Chuck gravitates to it, see if he likes it. So we put it out on his desk. First night he hit it. He loved it, of course. And then it became kind of this thing about like how can we one up, each time, what else can we do than just hit the button. So it became like this whole collaborative thing where everyone's pitching ideas about like, yeah, hey, let's bring in a circus, or let's bring in a team, or let's bring in a band, or the cheer, like let's dump this from the ceiling. So everyone was just kind of adding ideas and trying to plus it and make it better. The tragic thing about the story is Oscar unfortunately passed away about 2 months ago. Yeah, no one knew. It was really sudden. But like the cool thing is like his memory lived on the entire playoffs. Every time Chuck hit the button, everyone kind of thought about him and his idea and what it meant. And so it's just kind of like this kind of cool tribute that we ended up, every night we hit it, we're like, there's Oscar again, man. And he was with us the entire playoff run. And so it's just nice to see that kind of every night transpire. So that's kind of the story about the guarantee button.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
But like you said, it is one of the things that most people look forward to is like, what is going to happen? What's going to happen when he hits the button? Who's going to show up this time? So it's definitely something I look forward to, because I'm just like, what's going to happen today? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool. It was fun to be a part of.
So my last question for you is, so where do you see production going from here? It's kind of hard to see, another level considering where we're at now, but where do you see production and TV and all this kind of stuff going from here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think it's something we think about a lot around the office. Like, how do we stay relevant? How do we keep the show relevant? I mean, I'm proud of the show's been around for 30 years, and I haven't been, I've only been a part of, well, maybe 15 or 20 years in some level, in some form, but like we've kept it relevant. So, but that's what keeps me up at night. Like, how do we keep the show fresh and entertaining? And so there's a lot of thought, I think, social media was one wave that we saw come in, and we can interact with fans that way. It's so like, I think we're trying to look what's next with that. I think the other thing that keeps us all up at night is like how people consume media. And, it's not just on TV anymore. So like you see all these ratings are down across the board for all sports properties, really. Like, NBA ratings down, every rating is down. Right. And it's because people are consuming media different. It's not just all on TV. Like my kids don't even watch TV anymore. It's all YouTube on their devices, their iPads, their phones, whatever. It's like, I'm like, hey, do you want to sit and watch this? No, like, I mean, why would I sit and watch this thing when I can get the highlights or the clips somewhere else? So I think people's viewing habits are really changing. And so TV has to figure out what they're going to do about that. And I do like what we do. We post a lot of our clips, on YouTube. We post a lot of our clips out on social, and those are metrics we definitely look at. Like, hey, not only how the show perform, but did these clips perform? They did really well. We talk about creating moments in our show, and so these moments, I think we know when we hit one in the show, but it gets verified when 1 million people watch that clip, or it gets posted on 10 different blogs or whatever it is. But I just think we need to all think about, hey, it's not just about a TV show anymore. It's about, all these other people consuming all these clips and all this media way different than, I did growing up and even into my adulthood. It's changing rapidly and drastically. And if we don't wrap our arms around it, then we'll get left behind, and there'll be somebody else doing it better than us. So it's on us to try to figure that out.
Right. So I guess we'll see what the next 10 years hold.
Yeah, I think it's going to be crazy.
I thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this interview with me. I appreciate it. And see everybody next time on The Groundwork.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, Ashley. It's been fun.